Well, I probably get the most mileage out of Constantine Archibushu. We sometimes called him Archie, but not to his face. Archie was the doctor in charge of the 331st Engineering Battalion in the 40th Division. They had a nice aid station there, a Quonset hut, which not very many had. A lot of things in the engineering battalion were fairly deluxe. They, for example, they took a whole bunch of bridge girders and welded them together and made a rack underneath for a grill. So they had this huge grill. I mean, the thing was about 14 feet long. And they would get two guys on there. One of them was cracking eggs and laying them down. And they were very expert too. They crack the eggs like that. And go down laying the eggs down on the grill. And then another guy's coming along picking them up. Say, which ones do you want? The well done or the sunny side up or whatever. And they had all these eggs laying out on this huge grill. That's the kind of thing you got in the engineering battalion. And we also had nice warm tents in the winter time. So things were a little bit different there. Well, Doc Archibushu had a nice warm Quonset with an operating room. Now Archie was by trade, what do you call it, a gynecologist?
Oh.
And he got to be afraid that he was going to lose his touch while he was in the Army. So he started operating on dogs. He would bring a dog in, shave his belly, open him up, rearrange his guts a little bit, put him all back together and sew him up. Well, over some time, all of the dogs in the vicinity of the 331st Engineering Battalion, I think that was the right number, not sure, but all the dogs around there had bare spots on their bellies from Archie having operated on them. Well, we had one dog, Floppy by name. It's because he had one ear that flopped down. But aside from that, she looked very much like a pretty good German Shepherd. Good sized dog. Not one of the huge German Shepherds, but a good sized one. So our guys got the bright idea one day of, why don't we take Floppy up when she comes into heat and get the canine guys to breed with her? Because they had some nice German Shepherds. Well, came the time Floppy came into heat. And the guys took her and headed for the K9 battalion. Unbeknownst to them, this was the same day that the division commanding general was going to inspect the K9 battalion. So they expected the dogs all to go through their paces and show off their obedience and everything for the commanding general. Well, here were my guys there. Brought a dog in heat into that situation. Of course, the K9 guys, they wouldn't do shit. They wouldn't do anything except howl and
Oh man. So the generals.
So the general wasn't too happy with the K9 guys, and they weren't happy with us.
Oh.
They were very unhappy. So
Did they show you so?
no, they were nice enough that they went ahead and let Floppy breed with them, and she did have some nice puppies. But of course they couldn't be pedigreed
For Floppy, that
because
is.
nobody knew her genealogy at all. She was a wild Korean dog. Just she happened to look like a German Shepherd. Well, Archie, as you might guess from operating on dogs, was not too happy about not having anything to practice on. So we were about, I don't know, 15 to 20 miles north of any civilian place. We were in demilitarized portion of Korea at that time. And Doc found out that there were these villages about 15 miles south. So he started outfitting our Jeep. He got a flashing red light to go on the hood, same as the general. Flags to go on the front fenders, which had caduceus on them. You know, the two snakes and
Right.
medical symbols. He got side curtains. Now in Korea, nobody, not even the commanding general, had side curtains on a Jeep. Doc Archie did. Floor mats. Got nice woven floor mats to go in the Jeep. I mean, that thing was outfitted. And a heater. The heater was the crowning touch. As the gasoline heater went out. And it really put out some heat. Well, Doc let it be known amongst these Korean villages that he was available anytime somebody had to have a baby. Obstetrician, that was his trade, not a gynecologist.
Well, gee, why?
But anyway, the phone would ring, and off would go Archie to one of these villages down there to help some Korean national have a baby. Of course, this was all illegal as hell. You weren't supposed to do anything for the civilians, but it worked out pretty well.
So he was doing it for his own study.
Oh, he was doing it to keep sharp,
Okay.
and I guess he did.
Maybe he
Doc
published
was
his-
pretty he was pretty athletic too. He was a highly competitive volleyball player. Like I say, he was Lithuanian, and he was a pretty good athlete. And he and I probably played 150 games of chess. I never won a game. But there was one day when I held him to a draw. And oh my God, I never heard the end of that. I was lucky, according to him. And that was probably true, because he was a very aggressive chess player. I mean aggressive, in an Eastern European style. So that was my experience with the one doctor. It wasn't the end of my experiences with the 40th Division. When I first came to Korea on a boat from Sasebo, Japan, which I could tell some stories about Sasebo too. In fact, I probably will. On the boat, I met this fellow from Logan, West Virginia, named John Howes. Now, John was really a nice guy, and he and I hit it off pretty good right away. And after some time in the 40th Division, I got assigned, as I said, to the Engineer Battalion, and John Howes got assigned to the Tank Battalion, armored. Each division had at least a small amount of tanks, as opposed to an armored division. Standard division had, I don't know, maybe 20 tanks or so. Well, Archie sort of settled into life in the tank battalion, and he had a nice little setup there that was somewhat removed from the tank battalion headquarters. So there was really nobody watching over him to see what he was doing. Well, came one day, Archie's men captured a couple of Korean girls.
Captured, you say?
They captured them. Of course, they were not supposed to be in that area at all, but they were risking their life and their fortunes and their soap and towels. They were equipped with towels and soap to make some money. That's what they came there for. They were risking everything to make some money. Well, John captured these two girls. And they thought real quickly, I guess, before anybody else discovered it. And they knew they had a spare tent, which wasn't being used. So very quickly he had some of his guys set up the spare tent. And in the spare tent, they installed two Korean girls. And they went into business.
For how long?
was quite a few months. What happened was eventually they disbanded the 40th Division. The 40th Division was the California National Guard, which had been called to Korea as part of the emergency deal. Well, after the shooting quit for a while, and they decided to pull the 40th Division back to the United States. So that meant we had to disband everything. Oh, when that happened, of course, the jig was up, so
Did you leave when that battalion disbanded?
no, I got to meet the two girls, but that's all. I never got to meet them. MEAT.
Now in Korea, they're not called geisha, but it's something very similar.
Oh, these girls were just plain prostitutes, but they were rather good looking.
So they didn't have the etiquette that goes
And,
along with.
Oh no.
You're right.
This was just a plain, not very fancy house of ill repute, being illegally run.
In a tent.
There was some inoculation. There were some inoculations, right, Dad?
But there was a roaring business going on in the tank battalion medical division. I tell you, there was a lot of traffic in there at night. Relatively much traffic, anyway. But John, when I first met him, I thought he was a pretty square guy, and of course, he and he had not all of his men were involved with this. A few of them were, but they kept the girls fed, and every now and again, they would sneak them out to one of the bathing points, get a shower, and things just got maintained pretty good. Things went along that way until came the orders that we're going to start turning stuff back in, like extra jeeps, ambulances, and tents. So John very quietly made arrangements to pull the girls out of there and send them on their way back to Seoul City. And when he did so, see, all this time, he was not letting the girl, they were feeding them, giving them food and drink, a little bit of strong drink sometimes. Koreans, unlike the Japanese, did like strong drink. So he was taking pretty good care of the girls, but he wasn't letting them have any money. So over the course of these months that they were there, I guess they had saved up a big bankroll, many thousands of dollars. Now I guess the two girls were charging or John was charging like $20 a throw, or $20 a lay. And they had piled up a considerable amount of money. Well, John was mercenary enough that he pocketed a little bit. But the vast majority of all that, he gave back to the girls.
Wasn't that kind of
So
him?
they suddenly found themselves reasonably rich when they went back to civilian life. What's the flashing red thing on here?
That's the recording.
Oh, I was just
symbol.
saying you're recording.
Yep.
Okay. I just
Think-
wondered.
yeah.
I hadn't noticed it.
There's the time, elapsed time in the right corner.
You mean I've been talking 20 minutes?
Jeez,
Holy mackerel.
not bad.
Oh my.
You wanna stop?
Besides, Doc Archie Bushu, when I got transferred to the out of the 40th Division, you know, I was still there, and I still had time to serve in Korea. Well, they moved me from the 40th Division to the 7th Division, 31st Infantry Division. And the regimental surgeon over there was a guy by the name of George Block. Doc Block was famous.
Is he done?
He had a black belt in judo. He was on the board of directors of the University of Michigan Medical School.
That down and some pills down.
He was quite a personality. And amongst his other
I was
things,
horrible that day.
he liked to fight.
God dang.
He liked a good brawl.
I never spoke in front of anybody, no. I was always in the
So
background.
there was one night, the Tokyo
He was
Officers
the
Club.
speaker, Dad. You know, I was
The
a
Tokyo
background person,
British
background singer, background
Officers
backup,
Club.
background.
Summertime, winter.
The summertime.
Were we drinking?
Look at those arms, is he pressing metal?
Well, that's what officers clubs were for.
Yeah, like this? He's been doing barbells or? What are you doing with those arms?
Well, for my arms, I do pull-ups where I jump around the jungle gym from bar to bar.
Oh,
I jump like a monkey.
oh,
But anyways,
keeps you in training for being an 8-man.
yeah, keeps me in training for the jungle because you know I live in Allentown.
Yeah.
Which is-
Well, anyway, George Block was very famous for this episode.
I'll go up and get the tape.
He
Tell him I'm.
said to nobody in particular, did everybody feel like a fight? And of course nobody answered, but everybody gritted their teeth. And with that, Doc Block climbed up on the table and said, "Screw your bloody queen," to all the British. That wasn't the words he used.
Much vulgar.
A little more vulgar, yeah.
Oh boy, now this is not a time to be saying that sort of thing.
Well, things got very quiet. And then they erupted. And I got nailed in the head with a beer bottle and went unconscious.
So that's what happened.
That's one of the things that seem to happen to me in bars. You go unconscious.
Yeah.
But the guys rescued me before the MPs came. So,
When you came to, what was your normal circumstances when you come to after a night at the bar?
oh, usually no particular ill effects, maybe a headache.
Back at the barracks?
Yeah. But one of the generals in Japan sent Doc Block a bottle of Jack Daniel's whiskey, except it wasn't an ordinary bottle.
It's sort of worrying me. I know this was made.
The normal black label had been replaced with a very artistically done Jack Daniel's gold label made out of real gold leaf. And they had a place on it for an engraving. And it said, to Dr. George E. Block, barroom champion of Japan.
Oh man.
And Doc Block used to cherish that bottle.
Yeah.
He did.
Did he ever drink it?
Boy, I couldn't tell you that. Ever's a long time.
Yeah, maybe one day. he
I
did.
never saw him drinking out of it.
Right. That's fantastic. Yeah, they like their high-end liquors in Japan and Korea and Thailand.
You know, I've told you before about when I went drinking with the two Australian guys, but I probably should go ahead and tell that story to get it recorded down for posterity. We were all stationed. This was after about 4 or 5 days in Japan. They sent this whole big troop of officers, which included me, down to a place called Etajima, which was before and during World War II was the Japanese Naval Academy, similar to Annapolis. Had some nice barracks in it, and that's where we lived. And it was on a separate island at Etajima. So one fine Saturday, a bunch of the officers, my officer friends, and I joined in, decided to take a tour over to Curie, which was a decent-sized city, had gotten bombed out during World War II, and then rebuilt. It was pretty much rebuilt by this time in 1953. So we were touring around all the different drinking places in Curie, and we ended up in this one. And I started talking with these two very friendly Australian guys. They were a couple of neat guys. I still have things in my imagination where I think these two guys meet somewhere in Western Australia and say, "Hey Jack, you remember that Yank bloke that we..." Well, I sat there that night drinking with these two Australians. I thought I was a fairly good drinker, but nothing compared to these two guys. These were like professional drinkers. During the course of the night, I did my usual thing, I became unconscious. Well, these two guys had some imagination and some drive because they went to work and they fixed me up. I woke up the next morning not feeling bad, but I was laying right next to a warm body. Very warm body. Even hot. Boy, does she have the hots. And as I became conscious, I realized that she was having her way with me.
What a surprise.
And then I noticed that she was all covered with fur. Very fine hair all over, everywhere. I thought, what is this?
I'm going up and set up, John. I'm going up and set up because I think I have to.
Okay.
I've got to, honey.
Yeah, it was a question of not who was it, but what was it? I mean, my two Australian friends had gone to the great deal of trouble to find absolutely the ugliest girl there was in captivity. And that's what they had put me in with.
Oh my.
Well, as it turned out, she wasn't a nasty person or anything like that. But here I am. I said, oh my God, I'm AWOL. Where's my clothes? I don't have any clothes. Well, to my surprise, here came my uniforms, all neatly done, clean. So I got dressed and went back and caught the ferry back to Edajima, first one I could get. And I got in there just before noon. And as it turned out, my friends had covered for me. They didn't know what had happened to me, but they had covered for me. So, that's...
What a lucky position.
Yeah.
Did you run a string of good luck for days to come after that? Did you feel?
Oh no, it receded back into my past.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, I didn't catch any strange bugs or anything like that, so I was very happy.
Did you ever meet your two Australian friends again?
Never saw them. Never, don't know where I was, where I had been. I couldn't have found it if I was asked to.
It's like The Hangover.
When I came out of there, all I had to do was find the waterfront, which was easy enough. But,
So you looked for
but
water.
to find my way back, not that I would have wanted to, but it's impossible. A lot of Japanese places were very difficult to find your way in.
Well, somehow you managed.
Yeah.